Hi, this is John Akiola, and I'm going to be talking about Long Walk to Freedom, lessons I learned, or lessons from Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Lesson 1: standing up to your principles pridefully will cost you more than you anticipate. So, in the course of reading through the book, I kind of began to understand that the price for what you believe in would, be more than you actually anticipate right now. Some of us have different things we believe in. So, in this book, the father believed in education, you know. Nelson Mandela himself believed in justice, for all. He didn't want to sit and watch apartheid become the norm, and it cost him so much. It cost him his health, it cost him many years of his life, it cost him his family, and it was as though everything was coming against him and there was no hope. But somehow, not giving up showed that there was still hope. Now, lesson 2: inferiority complex is the greatest barrier to liberation. A case of misunderstood identity plagues Africa, and we must awaken. Yeah, what is inferiority complex? The fact that you think someone else is less than you, or you're better than someone else, because of, I don't know, maybe you're born to a rich family, or you're white and someone else is black, or you are black and someone else is white, or you are from a particular social construct or status, someone else is not, and okay, you live in the highbrow area, someone else lives in the slums, and that begins to affect how we relate with other people. So that's the context of inferiority, and it is a great barrier to liberation, especially in the sense that we're supposed to all be equal, right? And so you find preferential treatment given to certain people because even people of the same so-called complex want to treat themselves better and treat someone who they feel is inferior less, and that happened a lot in South Africa, and the Africans didn't wake up to their identity on time, especially South Africans in that time. And many other countries were getting their independence, but it was as though it was taking South Africa longer, and it was really bad because if you're not exposed to the outside world, for one, you won't know the truth. So they were being told things like, they had chiefs, but like the queen was like the chief of their chiefs, and so the legislation that was given to them by birthright, in terms of the kingship and all those things, and those that advise the king and all of that. Now the king and his subjects had to be subject to another magistrate, that was now like white. So they didn't have full autonomy as they used to. And it first of all happened like a kind of, strategic, silent, subtle way till it became more oppressive, and he was saying Africa needs to wake up to see that nobody is better than you, right? Even you as a black man, you are smart, you are intelligent, and you have the rights, especially in your homeland. So nobody should come, because they were dealing in Africa, in South Africa at that time. They were dealing with, we had the minority were whites and the majority were Africans, like blacks, and it was like the minority was, superimposing on the majority, and for the fear of being exiled, sent back to the ocean, back to their country, they didn't want to give up power, and so those were and then the South Africans didn't wake up on time to protest aggressively. They sort of just accepted the fact that the white man was better off. They gave him that respect, and they didn't fully realize that their rights were being trampled upon. So at that time, they were segmenting areas where you could stay as a black person and you could stay as a white person, and then in some areas, if the whites see that, oh, this area is looking promising, they will do like sort of find a way to make government policies favor them moving away. One such example was a place called Sophia Town in South Africa, and they sort of moved people away. They gave them like notice and just roughly transferred all the blacks and then tried to make it a white town. But it didn't really succeed, because on the other part of the town, I think there was like a lot of refuse dump, and the whites didn't really want to stay there after all. But look at all the displacement in your own hometown, and then other whites left the area, and I don't know, maybe later on blacks came back, but you had to like buy land. So people that owned the land for a long time, they were just giving peanuts to move somewhere else, or they made like makeshift homes for them somewhere else that were not even completed, and tried to move all of them there, and then later on they didn't really get to make use of the place. So there was a lot of unfair treatment of the blacks in South Africa in their own hometown. Now moving forward, we could also talk about the fact that democracy means all men are heard and a decision is to be made as a people. Yes, all men are heard and a decision is taken as a people. That is the true definition of democracy. So in that time, Nelson Mandela had a father figure, because his father passed away, and this father figure was like a king or something, and then he had like very respected, he was educated, and he would drive a car, he wore suits. Nelson Mandela used to enjoy pressing his suits. So when they had meetings, he noticed something about this man. He would come and give an introduction, then every single man that was there, from the chiefs to the local farmers, to the hard workers, to the miners, to the farmers, everybody will say their mind. Sometimes the meeting can take hours, and he will be there not saying a word. And at the end of the whole talk, two things can happen. Either he talks based on the consensus they have agreed upon, from what you summarize what everybody has said, and sort of say, okay, this is what I'm hearing from everybody and this is what we'll do. Or he can adjourn for another day to continue the discussion so that they can come to an actual agreement. And that goes to show how that it was a society that innate of itself had a lot to do with the people being the voice that the leaders listen to. But then when you take it a step up, you find out that the magistrates, who happen to be the whites, who they now have to be like defending their people to the white man in their own land, in order to say this is what our people want, and they have to come to some kind of compromise, and then if they come up with something that's not favorable to them, they have no choice but to go back to the people and tell them that, look, based on what the magistrate says, it's not going to be possible. And it wasn't really nice, to treat board land that way. So another lesson, I think that will be lesson 5, be that a crucial part of survival is understanding the motives of the enemy. I remember when I read this part, I think he was in prison, and I realized some things, that he had been fighting a lot legally. He almost likes to go, because he studied as a lawyer, so he would go to court for every little thing, even while in prison. They had like all their like mini courts. So there was this thing where he had to understand that the motive of the enemy is to suppress any voice that wants to speak against it. And because of that, he had to keep on speaking, he had to keep on coming out to fight. And he knew that once they get silent and they get comfortable in that scheme, it might take them many years, because the policies that the government was coming up with will only make things stifle, and they will so clip all their wings, because there was also fear that if they grant the blacks their freedom back, they might send them away from hostile, sending them away. So they were also scared of that. But they also, some white felt, these are the people's land, let them have their thing to themselves, but while some just because of the economic and other benefits and all. So understanding the reason why the enemy was taking strategic actions, they will carry some prisoners, they call them political prisoners, and they won't keep them in where our normal prisoners are. They'll actually separate them, because they felt that if they could mix with other, they would spread their ideology. So Nelson Mandela used to be part of what they call the ANC, I think it's African National Congress, and if they allowed the members of the ANC to mix with other prisoners, they could influence them with their ideology. So there was this intentional segregation from the other prisoners, and they were guarded, heavily, like as if they were, hardened, criminals. And they watered down their food. They had to fight a lot of legal battles, complain, the wardens, the prison officers, they were very mean to them, but they will always say, okay, we'll take this matter up. They will fight it in court again. And suppose they had to defend themselves because they were lawyers. Senior members of the ANC arrested. The government kept on having different policies. At the point, they banned ANC from being an organization, so you arrest you if you're a member of the ANC, and so many other things like that. So understanding their tactics, their motives, helped Nelson to know how he was going to fight. That's Mandela. So now it says a man can survive, lesson 6. A man can survive anything if he has a strong spirit. Nelson Mandela saw a lot of people break in prison. They couldn't take it anymore. Reasoning was trying to set in, and being a freedom fighter, your reasoning is coming from a different perspective. By the time you try to imagine yourself having a normal life, wife and children, all happily ever after, you might be heartbroken to find yourself in prison, life imprisonment with no option of bail. That can be disheartening. And this is to mention that even when they sentenced them to life imprisonment, they were given an option to appeal that sanction, that judgment, but they chose not to. It was like they were still fighting going life imprisonment, of which they were supposed to be sentenced to death, but the international community would have been outraged if they tried that. There was so much pressure by international communities, countries, coming to say no, nothing must happen to them. So they just sentenced them to life imprisonment. So now another lesson 7 would be that everyone has the power and responsibility to make the most out of every phase in life.